Classification of force. Force can be classified as contact force and action at a distance force. Contact forces represent the result of physical contact between two objects, where one of the objects exerts force on the other. Stretching of the spring of a balance, pushing of a pram, and kicking of a football are some examples of contact forces. Action at a distance forces are the forces which do not involve physical contact between the two objects but act through the space between the two. The gravitational force of attraction, electrostatic force of attraction, and magnetic force of attraction are the common examples of action at a distance forces. Balanced and unbalanced forces. When two or more forces are acting simultaneously on an object, the resultant of forces can be equal to 0 or greater than 0. Depending upon the resultant, the forces are classified as balanced and unbalanced forces. Resultant force. The single force which acts on a body to produce the same effect as produced by all the forces collectively acting on it is called the resultant force. Here you can see the three women pushing a boulder. The three women can be replaced by a bulldozer. Balanced forces. When a number of forces acting on a body do not cause any change in its state of rest or of uniform motion along a straight line, then the forces are said to be balanced forces. In other words, a body is said to be under balanced forces when the resultant force acting on the body is 0. The example given here will help you understand what is balanced force. Here you can see a man trying to push a heavy box. Let us consider the forces acting on the box. There are 4 forces acting on the box, and they are force exerted by the person, force of friction between the box and the ground, the force due to the weight of the box, and force of reaction exerted by the ground on the box. Even though 4 forces are acting on the box, it does not move. This happens because upward force of reaction exerted by the ground is equal to downward force due to the weight of the box, and force of push exerted on the box by the man is equal to force of friction. Thus, we see that the forces acting on the body are balanced, and hence it cannot change position of the body. In the game of tug of war, the two teams pull a rope in the opposite directions. If the two teams pull the rope with equal force, that is, F1 is equal to F2, then the rope does not move in either direction. Under this condition, the forces acting on the rope are balanced forces. Thus we see that a body at rest when acted upon by balanced forces does not move from its position. Hold a soft rubber ball between your hands and apply equal force with both the hands in opposite directions. What do you observe? The rubber ball does not move, but the shape of the rubber ball changes from spherical to oblong. Thus, we see that under the action of balanced forces, a stationary body does not move, but its shape may change. Thus, we see that the balanced forces do not set any stationary body into motion, do not change the speed or velocity of a moving body, but they may change the shape and size of a soft object. Unbalanced forces. When the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is not 0, then the forces are said to be unbalanced forces. The example given here will help you understand what is unbalanced force. Keep a block of wood on a table. Push the block gently. The block does not move. At this stage, the force of friction acting balances the force applied and the block is under balanced forces. So, the block does not move from its position. Now, gradually increase the force applied at A. When the force applied at point A becomes greater than the force of friction, the block starts moving in the direction AB. Here, force of reaction is equal to force due to the weight of the block, and force applied is greater than the force of friction. Therefore, resultant force in the direction AB is equal to force applied minus force of friction. Thus we see that the unbalanced forces acting on a body produce motion in it. Let us now consider the game of tug-of-war. As we have seen earlier, if the forces exerted by both the teams are equal, then the rope does not move. But if the force applied by Team A is greater than that applied by Team B, then the rope as well as members of the weaker Team B will be pulled towards Team A. Thus, we see that unbalanced forces produce motion. Let's see the effects of unbalanced forces on the motion of the bodies. When you apply force on the pedals of your cycle, it moves. The speed of the cycle depends upon the applied force. As long as you pedal, the cycle continues to run. Now, stop pedaling. What happens? The cycle begins to slow down, and after some time, it stops. Why should a body in motion stop on its own? To know this, let us examine the forces acting on the cycle in motion. When a cycle is at rest, only two forces are acting on it. The forces are the weight of the cycle in the downward direction and the force of reaction acting upwards. Force is applied on the cycle to set it in motion. This force acts in the forward direction. The force of friction acts in the opposite direction. As long as the driving force is greater than the force of friction, the cycle remains in motion. The cycle is moving under the action of unbalanced forces. There is a net force in the forward direction due to pedaling. When pedaling is stopped, there is no force acting in the forward direction. The force of friction continues to act in the opposite direction. So, the force of friction opposes the motion of the cycle. That is why the cycle slows down and finally stops. We see that a moving body stops under the action of unbalanced forces.